And welcome back to Champion News Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. Today, our host, Jack Roeser, and I, Carol Parisi, are speaking with Mark Levine about taxes not being the solution to Illinois pension and debt problem. $210 billion in unfunded liabilities that you don't hear from on the mainstream media. And these numbers are all, it looks fuddled to me. It looks like fuzzy math. What is the implication for our state and for our children to keep pounding this unsubstantiated debt? And is there really anything that can be done?
Absolutely. There's plenty that can be done. And frankly, actually, the General Assembly, my understanding is the General Assembly is actually working on something that can take that $210 billion at least down to the 140 again, $140 billion that Bill and I reference in the op-ed, and that's by every day. One of the games that the pension system plays when they're talking about their numbers is their assumption is that every teacher actually gets fired tomorrow and there aren't additional accruals of liabilities. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Right. Okay, and the $210 billion, the sort of breathtaking number there, includes $70 billion for future service, and it was important to me to sort of get that number out there, because if we don't reform the pension system today and at least stop digging the hole deeper, all right, we have, again, we are absolutely bankrupt today. So I know the General Assembly is working on that today, of having some sort of pay to stay and 401k type plan, which again is just the beginning. That just stops the digging.
Well,
right?
We need to stop the digging, and the grassroots needs to hold their lawmakers accountable. And I do know there's an initiative with Americans for Prosperity and some local grassroots leaders that are going to be talking to some of their lawmakers to say, hey, we need to start this ball rolling to stop this spending. When are they looking to bring this to the floor?
My understanding is, we're talking weeks, not months.
Weeks.
And, but again, you never know, right? The hope. Look, this is something that needed to be done years ago. Okay.
Right.
And now last year they actually passed a decent law. Okay, that took all new teachers and new state workers and put them on a different system. It's still a defined benefit system, which is highly unstable and actually unfair to the citizens and taxpayers of our state, but much better than the system that exists for everyone who was already sort of on the rolls. So that was a good start. Okay?
A defined benefit system. Just,
Sure.
A defined benefit system explanation for dummies like myself.
Oh, no. It's a lot of this is crazy inside baseball stuff.
You are so dumb.
The defined benefit, the fundamentals of defined benefit is that every worker beneficiary of the pension system, okay, or Social Security or Medicare, all the different sort of systems we have in our country or in our state, they're entitled to certain benefits, no matter how much they cost. Okay, there's really uncapped liability to taxpayers for that type of thing. And what now in the corporate world, pension systems used to be defined benefit, like all these state systems are, and federal entitlement systems.
But that wasn't on the taxpayers' back, though.
That's right.
That's on the free market's back, and it's okay.
Absolutely. And so what happened, of course, the free market tends to deal with problems instead of hoping they'll go away. And they actually converted, and this has now happened across corporate America, virtually all of those corporate pension systems have been converted to something called defined contribution, which I think a lot of your listeners, Jack, they sort of know as their 401k plans. Okay, and that's where where employees can save a certain amount of money. It might get matched by their employer, and hopefully it is, and then that gets invested in the stock market, in the bond market, and it grows over time, hopefully. But the employees take the risk of investment returns. That's not the case with our state pension system, and that's what's wrong. It's
like stacking the deck.
The system works exactly like you said, and that is what's wrong, and that has gotten in trouble everywhere in the private system. So, and the worst example, of course, is the automobile industry that was driven to the wall and went broke.
And went bankrupt.
Went bankrupt, and the government bought General Motors and Chrysler
we own them.
to save bankrupt companies. So that's what's happened wherever it isn't bolstered up foolishly by crazy politicians that don't have the guts to work by the laws of finance that you've been mentioning. They've been unrealistic twits, afraid to face the real problem and tell the taxpayers this can't ever be paid. So what you've got is a pension system that's what $170 billion in hock just for the K-12 system, which is the worst example in the United States of an underfunded pension system.
That's right.
It's craziness. The politicians haven't groped with this thing at all. And there's no way anybody could pay enough taxes anywhere without taking, everybody's money to where everything else crashed and burned. And you couldn't pay these things. And while the people blame the legislature, the unions blame the legislatures for not putting enough money in to hold this thing up, there's no way anybody could put that in. It's a crazy system, and it's been gamed by the union. It's the Illinois Education Association. I love to call them the Illinois Miseducation Association. The enemy of the Republic has precipitated this thing, and as their political power, they are the 800-pound gorilla of Springfield, and it's their political power that has caused the legislature to fail to face this problem in time. And now we're going over the cliff.
Well, now we have our financial reckoning day with big bloated government. And, Jack mentioned GM, and you were with GM. And would you like to tell our listeners what you did with them and what you did when TARP came?
Yeah, well, look,
Are you responsible for that?
No, actually, I actually had a sort of, it was kind of fun. I was on, General Motors had, obviously leases a whole lot of cars. They had a $13 billion leasing portfolio. And they had all of those in special subsidiaries that were financed and all sort of correctly done. And I actually was on the board of those things. And it was nice. I mean, it was a little bit of money, and it was, and it was sort of an honor to be there. And they're extremely nice people. Okay. What happened though, when TARP was, I have a huge problem with TARP. Okay, when TARP was first passed,
TARP is the acronym for what is it?
Well, TARP was actually under President
W. Bush.
Yeah.
Yep.
And TARP was the bailout of the financial system when everyone thought the world was coming to an end. And by the way, maybe the world was coming to an end, maybe it wasn't. But surely, cashiers at Jewel and shouldn't be bailing out partners at Goldman Sachs, okay, and paying their bonuses. And to me, that's what TARP is, okay.
Yeah.
So when TARP first came out, look, I work in the financial markets, and I was, like everybody else, extremely nervous. There are certain ways you have to handle things like that, and you can't just, it can't be all about bailing out large financial entities at taxpayers' expense. I mean,
They
there needs
should
to be
at
some
risk.
punishment. Yeah,
If somebody's going to take a banker or an investment outfit is going to take risks to make high returns on investments, and they're going to make big risks, and it all goes to hell, they should are the ones that should go broke instead of Obama bailing them out.
That's exactly right. And so the sort of small thing that I did was, when General Motors was actually bailed out by the federal government, again, the people there, very nice people, et cetera, but I called them up and I said, look, I'm just really not comfortable with this, and if I'd like you to replace me, and just sort of,
Good for you.
and yeah,
Good
and
for
so
you.
I was giving something up, but
You didn't give up your principles. You were principled in the fact that you knew that taxpayers should not be bailing out industry. Again, government shouldn't be bailing out industry on taxpayers'
Well, and
expense.
it's the worst possible thing the government can do, right? Because it takes from people who don't have and gives to people who do have.
Yeah. How about that?
I mean, there's nothing worse than corporate welfare, in my view.
Absolutely.
And and frankly,
That's right.
When this pension situation, we talked at the break that a huge issue I have on this pension front is this fairness question, where you've got taxpayers and citizens of our state, okay, that are, they've got declining home values, 401ks, they're struggling, and they're worried their own retirement asset, their own savings are going to run out in retirement. and yet it's on their backs that the state workers and teachers are getting these multi-million-dollar pensions.
95% of the people are paying these blasted high pensions for 5% of the people.
We are
Not
going to
fair.
be talking about taxpayers and if they should really be paying for unfunded pensions.